This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 99, where we are looking at Iron Fist Season 1, episode 10, Black Tiger Steals Heart. Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, episode 99, where we are looking at episode 10 of Iron Fist Season 1, Black Tiger Steals Heart. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm your other host, Derek.
And rounding out the group, I'm the one and only Siri. Sorry, we're actually, for long-time listeners, you'll get that. New-time listeners, hey, I'm Chris.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome back. You are also a fellow Defender. Did you see what I did there? I used our poll results and implemented them in a project management style.
Very impressive, very impressive. Yes, Chris put up the poll on the Facebook group, which you mentioned a couple of episodes ago, to rename our listeners. How'd it go, Chris? How did the poll go?
So, a staggering 19 of you did vote on fellow Defenders. Coming in second place, if you want to call it that, we had the Golden Handshakers.
Yay!
I like that.
That was me.
For our third place, tied for third, we had Fender Benders and Iron Fisters. And a fourth place, we had the Defended. But, fellow Defenders, you have voted with your clicks. So we are now you are all the fellow Defenders. We are the fellow Defenders. We are all defenders of the fellow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
You voted. It's a good way, and we can stick with it now.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I definitely think one of my personal favourites was the Iron Fisters, and also I did like the Rusty Foots as well.
That was quite good.
Yeah, I must say I like those now, and of course the Golden Handshakers. I mean, that was getting the hand in there as well.
I'm very impressed. I'm very glad that we ended off with fellow Defenders, to be honest, because we are almost at the end of season 1 of Iron Fist, so it wouldn't have worked very long if we went for something like the Rusty Feet or the Rusty Foot. I think was the option. So it wouldn't have worked for very long when we get into Defenders and when we get it back into Daredevil next season. So or Jessica Jones or Luke Cage. But fellow Defenders works really well. I'm wondering why Defenders ended off as low as it did. I think it only got one vote.
I think that was a spelling mistake.
Was it a spelling mistake?
No,
did we have
Defendors?
Okay.
We had Defendors. It's
That's
like
still a spelling mistake.
But no.
No.
It's just like saying Defenders with a really good accent. We are the fellow Defendors.
Right, so what you're saying is we actually didn't have an option for just Defenders up there at all. Okay, well, fellow Defenders works then.
Yeah, okay. Guys, give us your feedback if you prefer to get rid of fellow. We could just stick with Defenders. But I'll put a new poll up. I really enjoy polls on Facebook at the moment. I may have an addiction.
I like it. I think it's time to get into our discussion of this episode of Iron Fist. We are on episode 99, which means we only have one more episode to go. This one, until we reach our centennial episode, our 100th episode. You have a very small window here to get some feedback into us for our 100th episode. We'd love to hear from more of you. Got a couple of voicemails so far. If you want to leave us a voicemail, just go over to the website at defenderstvpodcast.com. Click the send voicemail button and record 90 seconds of your thoughts. Just even say hi for your 100th episode, Defenders, if you want to.
Absolutely. For all of those who have given voicemail feedback before, you know how easy it is. Go on, give it another go. And for those of you who haven't and are still a voicemail virgin, then absolutely go ahead and give it a try. And if you don't like the results, you don't need to send them in, because all our voicemails will be entered into our prize draw this season, where we have some vinyl pops of Iron Fist and the Wolverine, or should I say Logan, as well as some other great prizes, which we will of course make sure we put up on Facebook as soon as we remember to take our mobile phones out and use the camera attached to them.
Absolutely. But as I say, you've got a very small window to get this in. This episode is going up on the 14th of April. We are hoping to record our 100th episode that very same day. So if you have the opportunity to pop us in a message, please do so. And we'll love to hear from you.
And of course, if you want to listen to our 100th episode along with episodes 1 through to 99, then of course you can go over to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes or search Defenders TV Podcast on any other good or evil podcast catcher. And of course, subscribe to the podcast. And if you are feeling generous, please leave a review. All feedback in all shapes and sizes are very helpful. Thank you.
And don't forget, as we talked about those voicemails, why not tell us what your favourite moments have been in the last 99 episodes? Actually, I'm quite partial to a hand coming out of a giant hole. I think I've mentioned it at least once every third episode, fourth at this point, since coming up with this crazy concoction. Could it be the Siri comment? Could it be one of the other outtakes Derek has chopped and put in at the end of an episode and I have never listened to, so I've never heard it? Whatever it could be, don't forget to tell us your favourite points.
Yeah, now that you've subscribed to our podcast, Chris, you'll realise we actually edit you out of every episode.
Yeah, I'm secretly not even here. This conversation is not happening.
And of course, given that one of your favourite episodes was a big hand coming out of a hole, I think we should instate Innuendo Watch for this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, or dare I say it, Innuendo Watch.
I like it.
Given what's in this episode, it might be worthwhile to hang around and listen, because I believe there might be another Innuendo Watch.
There may well be, but we'll save that one for the notes. Let's get into our details about the episode.
So, Derek, do you want to tell us who wrote and directed this episode?
This episode was written by Quentin Peoples, who wrote episode 3 of Iron Fist, Rolling Thunder, Cannon Punch. Really good episode, that one.
Yeah, great one. Great. We got our first cage fight. Can't be better.
Yeah. This episode was also directed by Peter Hoare, who we know from Daredevil Season 2. He did 3 episodes of Daredevil Season 2, A Cold Day in Hell's Kitchen, The Man in the Box, and Penny and Dime. He's also slated to direct episode 3 of the upcoming Defenders series. So as we thought, a number of people who've directed former episodes of the other Defenders shows are being brought back on board to do the Defenders. So Peter Hoare is joining them. Quite cool.
I'm very curious, based on, which we'll get into, the fight scenes in this episode and the directorial style, the choreography, etc. Will that episode that he is directing most likely be a battle-filled episode?
Interesting. We will find out around the 18th of August.
Absolutely.
So, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for this episode?
Sure. Danny Rand wakes up in a martial arts academy run by Colin Wing's mentor, Bakuto, who teaches him how to recharge his chi. Danny becomes increasingly suspicious and infiltrates a restricted area where he learns from an imprisoned Madame Gao that Bakuto is a leader of the Hand. Rand confronts Colleen about this, who counters that Gao is the leader of an evil renegade faction of the Hand. Elsewhere, Bakuto offers the reanimated Harold Meacham a partnership during his visit to him, but Harold decides that, like Gao, he needs to be removed. Back in the academy, Danny learns that the Hand is conducting mass surveillance and is confronted by Bakuto, whom he overpowers and attempts to escape before being surrounded by Hand operatives. With impeccable timing, Dee's friend from Kunlun, Davos, comes to his aid. The duo fight their way to the gate, which needs to be destroyed by the Iron Fist, but Danny can no longer summon his chi. The duo continues fighting the Hand until Colleen opens the gate, allowing them both to escape, while she escapes on her own. Meanwhile, Davos tells Rand that they need to return to Kunlun to protect the mystical city. Meanwhile, Harold kills Lawrence Wilkins, head of Rand Enterprises board, and stages it as a suicide, paving the way for Joy Meacham to convince the board to reinstate Danny, Ward, and herself into their previous positions of power in the company.
I want to say a huge thank you to Wikipedia for helping us with the synopsis for this episode. There was so much going on and we were under a little bit of time pressure to get this episode done. So thank you so much, Wikipedia, and your wonderful anonymous writers for helping us out with the synopsis. And thanks, John, for reading it. That was really good.
And on that note, guys, should we get on to our first point on this episode?
Yes, absolutely. We had a little bit of an argument, kind of discussion anyway, in episode 9 about what was going on with the Hand, whether Bakuto and Colleen were members of a faction of the Hand and Gao was a member of another one. You guys got it right. I got it wrong. I was really hoping that Colleen wasn't working for the Hand. I was hoping that she'd be working for possibly Styx Group that we saw in Daredevil, where she was fighting against the Hand. But no, she is in the hipster version of the Hand, maybe?
Is that a
Colleen
thing?
or Gao?
Colleen.
I'd love to see Madame Gao in a hipster outfit. You know, like the way like some hipsters wear like glasses with no glass, and then like 1970s outfits just because it's kind of chic. Would that mean she'd wear 1870s outfits?
I think it's more 17th century outfits. Yeah.
with a flat cap and a really expensive craft ale.
Yeah, but for her, it's something that's in the wardrobe, really, rather than her going back in time and taking somebody else's outfits. It's just stuff that she has lying around.
Craft ale, that like the wine in the filing cabinet at work.
Don't tell anyone about that, John. Anyway, truthfully, this point is about obviously Bakuto and Colleen are members of the Hand.
Hell yes,
Certainly are.
We got full confirmation. And I can't believe it. We're on a good streak with this one, guys. Like, I don't know whether that's coming to the fact that we are now almost as talented in crafting some of these stories as the Iron Fist writers, or we've been watching it so long we can kind of guess the next steps, or it's just that predictable. I'll let our listeners decide.
Well, I'll say I've been on every single one of these 100 episodes, plus all of the Gotham TV podcast ones, and I still got this wrong. So, hey, look, it's obviously not working on me.
Okay, we're just more intelligent. That's it. John, it's official.
Yeah.
We are more intelligent and smart.
High five, Chris. Absolutely, high five.
But let's jump on. For me, I was actually happy with this. This should, like, from a stylistic kind of narrative point of view, it made sense. And it actually does lead to some better questions in terms of, okay, so this fractioning or fractal breaking of the Hand, old school versus new school. So who's doing what? So we had like maybe the investment banking elements that we've seen in season 2 of Daredevil. Actually, that is, which fraction is that? Like, how does this build to the Defenders? Is it going to be the Defenders are fighting two versions of the Hand? This just kind of got my creative theory juices running in terms of, if it was just the ninja-clad warriors only, then yes, it could become quite tiresome. But now you can see that these are, as you said, the hipster Hand. They're cool. They understand. It's cultish, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I think as well, Bakuto's, there was a lot of obvious hints of black and deep red, and actually those colors were more reminiscent of Nobu and his ninjas and Elektra even than Gao's. And to me, this kind of then tonally made sense for me. Maybe that's just one of my OCDs playing out, but
you like everybody dressed the same, right?
Well, no, it made more sense just with the surveillance and all of that. And I do think that there was reference made to the fact that Gao is a renegade faction of the Hand who is dealing in drugs and so on, whereas Bakuto, more like Nobu as well, are purists of the Hand who are dealing in, more highfalutin kind of concepts of bringing the black sky, or trying to convert the Iron Fist over to their way to show that they're not evil. Maybe Bakuto is slightly more techno-minded in this way, but I felt a similarity of purpose. It was much more defined by sort of the mystical side of things, the tradition, the history, the legends.
Yeah.
Whereas Gao very much is fully aware of all of that stuff, but now we see that, you know, she rules by fear, and is maybe much more interested in getting everyone high and pocketing the cash.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a real reminder for me of a very big comic book series at the moment. I'm not going to spoil it, because if I do, it will ruin the comic book series. But anybody who's reading Marvel at the moment, one of their flagship comic books has a character who is going through exactly this concept, where he feels that his faction of Hydra is the good faction, is doing the right things for the world. This is what I feel Bakuto is like for the Hand. He feels like he's taken what the Hand was, the ancient order that it came from, which is an evil order, and turned it into a future-proofed, ready to save the world place where everybody can get together and all kind of peace and love under the banner of the Hand's kind of influence, I suppose, more so than anything else. The way he speaks to Harold and discusses with him about, I'm not going to be the same kind of person as Gao was. You'll be much more free under me than you were under Gao. The way he talks to Danny is very much saying that he's a good guy in this situation. What you've been told in Kunlun, in the ancient city of Kunlun, is about an evil version of the Hand that doesn't even exist anymore. How would they know? They never leave the city, basically, is the kind of concept that Colleen and Bakuto are trying to convince Danny of. So yeah, very reminiscent of a comic book that's actually out there right now. The comic book readers know exactly who I'm talking about, yeah. But yeah.
But until you disagree with them, and then by Jove, we'll chop off your hands, feet, and head.
By Jove.
The one bit, just to kind of wrap up that part, was the part where Bakuto and Danny are chatting prior to the 1946 video. Okay,
yep.
Because I don't want to get into that part yet. We're pocketing that for a later one. But that part where before he mentions anything, where he's discussing, is like, why can't you do more? Like, you're part of Rand, and don't you get the feeling that they should be doing more than just X or Y? I think he does mention the drug part, selling for cost, for example. Which that for me was like, I suppose this updated version of the Hand. You can see how Daryl potentially has been. If you take away the evil elements of the Hand, you can see, okay, well, actually, as a theory, like in just, again, in this MCU world, the Netflix world as well, this makes sense. How someone could go, well, I'm here by learning martial arts, I can help save the world and make it a better place.
Absolutely.
Like, that's an interesting premise to explore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the sales. It's definitely the sales pitch for pretty much every cult in the world. Is everybody else is doing it wrong? We're doing it right. Come join us. We're the right side. Yeah.
But they're not going to try and transport you to Pluto on the sixth elliptical of thing, or the Overlord Zemu is not out there.
They might, though, of course, because I mean, there's still a load of crazy stuff that potentially could go on here. He's just more kind of modern day management techniques and technology than Nobu. I think that's maybe all that separates them. But like, I think Bakuto, I really enjoyed his portrayal in this episode, and I loved the arc in this episode of him and Danny. You know, where it goes from him being helpful, setting out his vision, you know, showing him how to effectively boost up his chi through that meditation. And I loved them mirroring one another with the martial arts move. That kind of dance on the grass was really good. And then the increasing suspicion that comes across Danny as he sees the guards who in the restricted area who are guarding Gao, and he keeps asking where she is and what they're going to do with him, and he's being fairly vague. And then in the office, he sees the ceremonial dagger on the wall, which is the same kind of dagger that was in season 2 of Daredevil. The guy in the top of the office. His alarm bells are going internally, and then just the whole mind mess from Gao and Bakuto on Danny, and saying one's worse than the other is the other is good, the hand is good, conflicting with everything that Danny has been taught, and then culminating in that fantastic fight at the end, where really Danny hands Bakuto's ass a bit on a plate. Really, I love some of the moves in this fight, but he really knocks Bakuto down here.
Yeah, for me, that scene where the scene you're mentioning, where Danny runs in and sees all the TV and surveillance and parts like that. That, for me, I was like, it took me a second just from the hard cut on the screens. I had to kind of actually do a bit of rewind, okay, I see what. Now, again, I was watching it quite late, so I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But the cuts kind of made me double take. But then Danny's overreaction to me, that was what he did. He overreacted. He was literally a child throwing his toys out of the pram by like throwing the computer screen and keyboard across the room. Which I loved. Following that was Bakuto coming in and almost like he was like a disapproving mother. I'm disappointed in you. I'm not angry at you. I'm disappointed in you. And like that was the tone that the actor gave, and I was like, no, that's cool. I wonder how many times did that I wonder, was that a one shot, or how many times that was actually a take on that? Because I think it was very nice juxtaposition between Danny flying off the handle and then Bakuto coming in so calm, collected, and then Danny using that rage that you talked about, like just those fights and knocking Bakuto out, like not out, but knocking him down. Again, this is kind of driving to the points that we've mentioned like a couple of episodes now, where Danny's losing that inner focus part.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a moment here where he's really frustrated at the idea that Colleen would be taken in by the Hand, the person that he's sworn to be the enemy of. He's sworn to be the protector of Kunlun versus the Hand. So I think that's definitely his frustration coming out at how could this person have been taken in by someone that's telling her they are the Hand and they're good. How could she be taken in by this? And how was I taken in by her? That's kind of where he's taking the frustration out in everything that he's seeing when it's confirmed to him that he's definitely right. His suspicion that this is the cult, that this is the Hand. He's never going to be able to be convinced by Colleen and Bakuto that this is a good society. He spent 15 years hearing that they are the evil bad guys that he's supposed to be fighting against when he's been living in Kunlun. So yeah, they're never going to be able to convince him otherwise.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think it was, I thought it was really well done. Just the betrayal of Colleen. There's part of me that, this answered a lot of questions, and, there was part of me thinking some of this stuff it could have benefited from being earlier in the series so far. Maybe done in a different way. Some of these reveals, not necessarily at this martial arts camp, but that's not to take away from the episode at all. But part of the thing that actually adds to it is the fact that actually Colleen was established in such a way and over a number of episodes that she was this helpful ally to Danny, that it made that reveal so much more sort of deep and difficult to take, compared to maybe if it had been done much closer together and much sooner. I think it's that fine balance, isn't it, where in some of these series we've said, I wish they'd just pace that out a bit more. This actually really helped it work much better, I think, or give it more impact by being spaced out. You really lived with Colleen in these episodes as being an ally of the Hand. A few question marks with the first arrival of Bakuto, but, potentially... Was he Davos at the time? It still wasn't necessarily the Hand that was at play there, although you could have maybe suspected that. So I thought that really worked here, definitely.
Right. And I have to say I really enjoyed that Dany did call out something that we'd mentioned before. If Colleen does work for the Hand, if she's working for a bad guy like Bakuto, is he the one that gave her the money to put in Dany's cup as their introduction in episode 1? I like that it's called out by Dany here, and Colleen throws her eyes to heaven and goes, "No, that's not what happened. Don't take that as the way to go." And we do end the episode with Colleen running away from the academy, so she seems like she's been convinced by Dany that these guys are actually bad guys. Potentially, we'll see more about that probably in a future episode, but. I love that Dany does call out that he doesn't trust her anymore because of where he's brought her to.
Yeah, just quickly to go back to something Derek said there as well. I mean, Colleen, not only does she leave the compound, but she does help them escape by opening up the front gates. And I think whatever doubts she has, it must certainly be around her loyalty as much to Dany as well as maybe now the conflicted loyalty between him and obviously the Hand and the mentor Bakuto.
Yeah.
So what I'm really interested in is where it goes from here. Okay, so we talked about how potentially emotionally immature the character of Dany Rand is in this series. Based on he was raised by the monks. It's a different Dany Rand to slightly that we were portrayed in the comics that we see. It's a more fragile Dany.
Yeah.
An origin story Dany. He's still not the Iron Fist yet, as we know and see him in our heads. Right now. I'm not talking about the future. What I'm really interested in is how this story continues in terms of the redemption of Colleen. The redemption. Is there love at the end of the tunnel? Is there light at the end of the tunnel for this relationship? I'd love to see, is there a way that they could step past this? It's almost like an anti-brainwashing piece where like both Dany and Colleen, because if you think about it, Kunlun and the Hand are like two sides of a different coin. Both are monastery religious-based organizations. One is good and thinks the other is bad, and vice versa.
You would totally be in this academy, wouldn't you, if this was in the real world, Chris?
I don't know. They would make me really skinny, and potentially I get to do like surveillance ops. Hell yeah! But no, I'm just really interested to see because I know we've talked about in the comic books, Dany Rand and Misty Knight have relationships in the comic books. I think 2 episodes ago, we discussed maybe this is how they're not going to do that. They just have Colleen and Dany. And I liked it. They put you almost, they're like, hey, this is a beautiful couple. Check it out. They're kind of sweet together. Like that opening scene when they're in the bed. I was like, that is nice. Like that is a nice representation of a relationship kind of, or a budding love, if you want to call it. Then what we're getting now is actually that's been torn apart down to the very foundations. It will be a hard narrative and a hard storyline to do, but the redemption of that would be cool.
I'm not sure whether they're going to get too deeply in the next 3 episodes. I kind of think they've used a little bit of shorthand here with Colleen being the one letting them out of the academy. They wouldn't have escaped without her, basically. And then she runs off on her own. I have a feeling we won't see a huge amount out there. We may not see a huge amount of Colleen for a little while. They could be going back off to Kunlun, so...
Absolutely. But we do have our first innuendo watch with this whole scene where Dany does tragically say... was this before or after I used the fist that... Now, given the name of the character, innuendo has been fairly light in the series, which has been excellent. I'm really pleased, actually, because, innuendo is always hilarious for my 10-year-old brain.
But it would totally have undermined the series if there was innuendo from the start.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm glad there hasn't been. But I did kind of chuckle at the timing and phrasing of his words. Where yes, basically, really all he meant was, "Did you know that I was the Iron Fist from the start?"
Yeah.
Or did you get to like me for who I was? You see, he has feelings, little Danny.
He certainly does. This is his first girlfriend. He was celibate before he met her, so this is his first girlfriend, remember? So
well, that didn't last long.
Young love.
Absolutely.
But saying that, who better to deliver an innuendo joke line with some levity while also keeping serious would Miss Temple. She could get away with it, her character. And I'm hoping when she introduces Danny to the rest of the Defenders, she goes, "And this is the Iron Fist, not that type of fist." That would bring a small bit of levity to the Defenders, which is probably going to be in a serious section. You get a bit of a giggle, you go, "Okay, yeah, that's funny," and then walk away. Rosario Dawson has the ability to get that right.
Definitely.
Well, I think on that note, we should move on from the innuendo and into the black and white Iron Fist, which we have skirted around in our point 1. But for point 2, we have black and white footage, previous Chinese footage of an encounter by the Chinese army with another Iron Fist. And I have to say, this was so cool because he had it on. This was kind of the tiara and collars of Luke Cage, where they nodded to the original costume, and here we have a similar nod back. It had fairly flary collars. He had the mask on. Obviously, we can only assume it was green and gold, but this was absolutely great seeing another Iron Fist kicking some ass.
Yeah, very cool and very smart of the show. There are rumours that they did try the costume for Danny at some point for Finn Jones to wear in the show, and that the colour scheme is not something you could see him walking around in New York wearing. So what a great way to hide it than to show black and white footage of the outfit. So we do get it in the show. We see somebody wearing the Iron Fist costume, but it's not Danny Rand, and it's not in full daylight. It is in black and white. So we can only assume, as you say, that it is a yellow and green costume, or a yellow costume, or a green costume. But yeah, we can't tell from the colours, which I think is a very smart decision on behalf of the showrunners here.
For me, this was great. Like, what we see in film on black and white is a fully realized Iron Fist who has reached his full potential. And what we see here with Danny is, with his limited usage of powers, the only power to, and it's always the same fist. I actually looked at it, it's always his right fist, by the way.
That's right.
This is an Iron Fist who is still in chrysalis, in like the very beginning forms, the larvae forms, if you want to call it that, of becoming. And we've mentioned maybe he ran away just after getting powers and not knowing his powers. This is kind of concrete evidence. But beyond that, and Derek, this is one for you, the Iron Fist is now officially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe the very first costume hero in the universe, before Captain America. Am I right?
Maybe, but I'm not sure. This particular footage that they show in the episode is 1948.
Yes.
And Captain America is during World War II, so he would have been 1941 through 45 before he went into ICE. So, but he was the American side of the war, so 1941 to 1945 before he went into the ICE. So, so I think Cap is still first. It's entirely it's entirely possible that the Iron Fist did. It could have been there before him, but just from this footage, it does happen after Captain America: The First Avenger. So, but it could easily be the first Defender.
Real.
Come on. I just wanted to take a bit away from S.H.I.E.L.D. I was kind of like, no, give it to Cunlun, give it to Cunlun. They've got a new mantle.
It's also entirely possible. Remember, Madame Gay did mention that she's faced a number of Iron Fists before, and she's been around since the 17th, 18th century, we think. It's been there for hundreds of years, so the legacy of the Iron Fist could go back hundreds of years. So you could be absolutely right. Yeah, I suppose there's no surviving hero or living hero that goes back further than Steve Rogers.
No, and I think one of the other things as well on that black and white footage, Chris, was that not only was it two fists that were glowing, but the glowing was more fiery. You didn't get a sense of the hands. It was more that kind of, like it has been depicted in comics previously, like the fireball of chi around the hands that envelops the hands, not simply that the hand glows and maintains its form. So it looked slightly different as well. Again, maybe that he is more powered than Danny,
100%,
with his chi and in using it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Remember, in these 10 episodes, all we've seen Danny be able to do on his own, without any guidance from anybody else, is fire up that one Iron Fist, that one powerful fist, and only able to do it on occasion. He hasn't mastered the chi. Everything he's learnt so far about his powers and abilities actually come from Bakuto. The piece about him being able to heal somebody else, heal himself, get in contact with his chi, recharge his chi, all of those elements really have come from Bakuto in the last 2 episodes. Prior to that, the only thing he's been able to do is focus his chi on one point, which is that one Iron Fist. So yeah, he's very, very early on in his development as the Iron Fist. So and here we see a fully formed Iron Fist, which I'm hoping we're going to see in Defenders, really. We're not far away from the Defenders, and I'm presuming we're going to see Danny power up even more as this series goes on.
So, question. We've got 3 episodes left, right? Has it been said at all, is there a gap between the end of Iron Fist and Defenders episode 1? Do you think they will put a 6 month later,
No.
kind of Wayne Wells, or it goes literally 24 hours later job? Because
they're never very specific with these things, and they're definitely keeping a lot of that stuff close to the chest. But I do feel that the growth that Danny comes out of this season of Iron Fist with will be maintained going into the Defenders, or he will potentially have developed a little bit more. We don't know where he's going to end up the season. Obviously, we've still got 3 episodes to watch, so the next 3 episodes could just take place in Kunlun, and he could be there training for the next 3 episodes, and then come back to New York in time to meet up with the Defenders. So this could be a huge bit of a huge explosion of development over the next couple of episodes, and then he walks back into New York for the Defenders as a much more powerful Iron Fist.
Do you think we get a 1980s style not Rambo? Do you think we get a 1980s style Rocky montage?
Montages are always cool.
Like Davos on the hand on one side going against a punching bag, and then Danny on one side going, and then the end is like him just putting his fist through the punching bag. Like,
That would be pretty cool.
Wisha versus Sly Stallone. Who can forget that?
That would be pretty cool. Let's talk a little bit about the Kunlun part of this episode. We obviously knew it was Davos last episode who had arrived. Danny's friend from Kunlun, the guy he'd mentioned a few times. Davos comes in at the most opportune time for a best friend to arrive, when you're being surrounded by hand guys at either side. And we finally get another wonderful hallway scene. We had one earlier on in the season where Danny took on the Hatchet Men in the hallway. Now we have the back-to-back fight sequence that you've been expecting from Kung Fu movies, Chris. I know you were talking about this well early on in the season, that you were looking to see potentially Colleen and Danny go back-to-back fighting, being surrounded by hand, or being surrounded by enemies. In this scene, we get Davos plus Danny working together in some great moments in this fight.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's go for the hallway first and then on to Davos. So that hallway scene, I think since Daredevil episode 1, these hallway scenes are and the style are evolving. And in Iron Fist, we got that the first Hatchet Men hallway scene, and I really loved that. And then in this episode, for some reason, it was whatever way it was shot or directed from a fight perspective, it just made it was a lot more dirty. It was a lot more Daredevil for me, and I loved that. I have to admit, I really did like it. That last moment where they're all on top of Danny and Davos, and then the 2 lads almost jump and push out. I was like, that was a comic book come to life for me, but
Definitely.
not in the I'm the Hulk kind of slightly beyond belief. These two men are martial artists at the peak performance. Okay, yes, one has a glowing fist, but like beyond that part, it was more like this is what two people who have trained in a kung fu monastery, a martial arts monastery for their life can do. And they took on about 20 guys.
Absolutely. And importantly, it's showing the two of them working together, because they've obviously done this many times within the tournaments that Danny's talked about in Kunlun. They've obviously worked together many times. There's some great little scenes of running along the wall to get past some guys. The two of them taking on each other's opponents in some scenes, which are really, really cool. Yeah, really enjoyed this scene.
Yeah, I thought Davos's fighting style as well. Yes, it was martial arts, it was kung fu, but it felt more earthy as well. It felt a bit more physical. Certainly in the courtyard scene, but I think even in this, it felt more punchy than kind of blocking and sort of chopping or thrusting, or sort of Danny's movements are very graceful generally. They're quite airy. I think this was it felt more earthy, definitely. But it was great to hear as well that he has come to bring him back to Kunlun as well, which begs the question: will they get on a Rand private jet back to Kunlun, or is there going to be a standoff where Danny convinces Davos that his place at this moment is to save New York from the Hand? And maybe he convinces Davos that, his place is here in New York to fight the Hand because it has got some form of ramification back to Kunlun. The Hand is kind of focusing everything on New York from, we've been told that in Daredevil season 1 and season 2, that this is the place where, something special is going to happen. With the whole black sky, with Elektra, with that huge hole. So what is going to pop out of that other than maybe a Rancor beast or the Millennium Falcon? What is going to, or a giant hand? What is going to come out of that? Mm-hmm. And maybe they'll send it off back to Kunlun to attack the mystical city.
Yeah, no. So, do you remember? Again, I'm referencing previous episodes quite a lot, and I apologize for any new listeners, kind of at this point. But hopefully, you've been along for the ride. We did posit that, or hypothesize that perhaps rather than in one of the comic books, the threat facing Kunlun was Hydra. So potentially in this MCNU version, it may be the Hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that is I think this was another storyline that we may have kind of superseded ourselves with it slightly. In that I think this will be a Defenders almost storyline, but it's being hinted at now.
Oh yeah, that's not just being hinted at. That's in big bright lights. That's the big threat to Kunlun is the Hand, and has been for centuries. Yeah, that's why Danny is the defender of Kunlun versus the Hand. Yeah.
I think you're right about the flashing lights, but I think they are now setting it up as an immediate threat. So we're talking about, okay, maybe Danny gets shipped off home. So I don't think it's going to happen now. I think at the end of episode 13, as John said, he's going to have a standoff with Davos now. And I think that's how the whole Baron Mordo kind of the similarities will happen. Davos will go, how can you shirk your responsibilities? Yeah. Danny will say, I'm staying here. This is my city too. He stays for 3 more episodes, 24 hours, 48 hours, what it is, and then returns to Kunlun. That gives us a break for everything's tied off nicely for a return in Defenders.
Right.
And that's where he can come back with the immediate threat.
Interesting, yeah.
Going.
Yeah, and of course, if Danny is to stay in New York, Davos could go back to Kunlun, and in the comics, Davos does try to take on the mantle of the Immortal Iron Fist. This could be a way of him getting his scarring and going on that journey for maybe Iron Fist Season 2, where he sees no choice but to try and become the Iron Fist, take on Shou-Lao the Undying, do it, but also get, injured in the process as well, and the scarring, and then the resentment towards Danny really begins to flare up, and we get that kind of steel serpent antagonist then of Danny, because Davos is and has been both friend and foe. So this could change the relationship here for Davos, and have consequences down the line that absolutely breaks their previous friendship, which would be really good, I think, if we get a season 2, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah, I think right now their friendship is fracturing already, and has fractured a little bit already by the fact that Danny has left. You got to remember here, Gao is now aware that Kunlun is unprotected for the first time in centuries. That's why she was doing the test on him. That's why when she found out that he was the Iron Fist, that's why she was amassing the people to go after him. That is kind of the concept here in the show, is that Danny has left his position. Davos has been sent to New York to drag him back, kicking and screaming if needs be, to get him to stand at the gates of Kunlun and protect it again. So it does feel like while they do fight together, Davos doesn't really entertain Danny's concept of why he's in New York. It's give this up, you must come back with me right now, is kind of where we leave it.
I don't want to continue speculating too much in terms of, because again, this was a beautiful Netflix ending. This is what I commend Netflix for doing. In terms of and I talk about it quite a lot, and I don't want to kind of drown on about, but they have perfected that binge episode kind of final scene, which is they say just enough to make you want to continue on, and like that closing scene was beautiful, because I don't know if you guys caught it as well on the billboard, as it kind of pans up, pans down, and pans back up again, was the "We're here for you" Rand billboard.
Yep.
It was a Rand Enterprise. I was like, that is such a tiny little thing. They didn't even zoom in on it or anything like that. But some directors would go, okay, cut into that. It was just a beautiful it was framed, and I kind of did a double take. I was like, that's a nice way. It's like, New York is here for you, Danny. Actually, well, no, it's not. Rand Enterprises is probably there for him. Yeah. And I was like, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we've already talked about one of the fight sequences in the episode. The other big fight sequence is in the courtyard, really. So it obviously started out in the hallway, and there was loads of hand guys there. But there's a much bigger fight sequence in the courtyard in this episode, where we've got tons and tons of the trainees, I suppose, in the academy, and some of the higher level people in the academy coming at Danny and Davos. Really cool fight sequences.
Yeah, this was fabulous. Like, I mean, can you imagine if Danny had gotten his Iron Fist on? Because they really did make good work of all these red shirts, or black and red shirts coming at them. I really like this, and again, more back-to-back fighting, really good. Davos snaps Daryl's leg, breaks it. That was pretty brutal. This was an epic fight battle in the courtyard. We have the confrontation with Bakuto. We have all the operatives running. We have Colleen, deciding should she, shouldn't she. I mean, she effectively takes out the guy who's manning the gate so that she can help them escape. And again, we see here now that Danny is unable to call his chi, which is interesting, because I'd love to know why, because he hasn't used it since he supposedly recharged it after doing the meditation and moves with Bakuto. So that's really an interesting thing.
Was there something to do with the injection from Bakuto? The device that he used to stab him with looked like it was a capture device of some sort, that maybe capturing a sample of his blood or something like that.
I was wondering that, because I was wondering, did that happen before or did that happen after? Because I thought Bakuto confronted him, then there was the huge fight, and then it was as they were running to escape that Bakuto kind of swoops in. And initially it looked like he was being stabbing him in the side, and of course Danny does leave with a wound, but the camera deliberately focuses in on what he's picking up, and it's not a knife. It looks more like some kind of syringe pen or something like that. And so here's one of my theories now that I wonder what will happen.
Right.
So Daryl at the end has had his leg broken. He's up against one of the walls, and Bakuto comes over to him. To begin with, I was thinking, is he just going to snap his neck because he was useless?
Yes, I thought that too.
Yeah, but he didn't, and instead kind of makes a fairly prophetic kind of statement to him that you are the future of the hand. Now, is that just because he's young, eager, and new, and so on? Yeah. Is he effectively going to die in the next episode, or was that that device in Bakuto's hands that he stabbed Danny with, was that getting some kind of biological sample? Was it getting the chi? Was it something that they could culture, analyze, replicate so that they could effectively inject Daryl with some kind of chi or proxy for the chi, so that they have someone who can maybe counter the Iron Fist, the Immortal Iron Fist, because we do see that Danny kind of took care of Bakuto quite easily. In a sense, yes, it was still a challenge. Bakuto is highly experienced, highly trained, but he still really didn't last very long up against Danny without his chi. So, a few suggestions, because I put the question out there. There is possibly Kirigi, I think, or Kirigi, who's an ancient legend of the past and a hand operative, a highly skilled, legendary hand ninja. Could be that, and that was Claire Laffer kind of suggested that, so it could be that. Or it could be, some other form of monster that comes back. I was almost wondering whether it could be Chi-Lin, that maybe whatever sample they've taken gets corrupted, and yes, it gets injected back in, but that in some way the sample is tainted, so that when it's injected back in, it kind of morphs into a way so that it's maybe he could become Chi-Lin. But I know we've already had reference to Chi-Lin as being the master of Jo Chung, so probably not that either. I think this would be really interesting, just because of how deliberate the emphasis was on whatever Bakuto picked up.
And the other big point in this episode is that Bakuto consistently says that from the moment he found out about the Iron Fist, he's been researching and investigating what the Iron Fist is over and over again. So entirely possible he's built some form of capture device specifically for the Iron Fist, so that he can get the power of the Undying Heart of Shao-Lao out of the Iron Fist if he ever does encounter him in the future. Perhaps this is the whole reason that he set up where he is and trying to get Danny there. So that's entirely possible. Interesting theories, John. And only 3 episodes left to find out.
I know. I actually like that now, because that goes kind of the exact opposite. While you guys are talking capture device, I thought this was more like an EpiPen injection device.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is, now, I'm not aware, or I don't actually know the lore deep enough, but is there
of EpiPens?
No, I meant of chi-blocking pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
So could he have injected Danny with a chi-blocking serum, if you want to call it that? He can, literally, as you said, he's been investigating the Iron Fist for years. That he has a Chinese video, so maybe the Chinese came up with this, the Chinese army, to battle this previous Iron Fist, etc. He's taken that formula, because that is a good way of depowering a pretty violent, powerful hero in pre Defenders in this series, or post, as in during the Defenders, where like if Danny gets hit with an arrow with this stuff laced in it, etc., or a dart, then all of a sudden he loses his Iron Fist.
Right. Very interesting. Liking the theories, gentlemen.
There we go.
Theories. Yeah, that's the 2 opposing theories, but both based on the same concept. So I like it. I like it a lot. I think we need to move on to the final point about the episode. So the other storyline that was going on in this episode is obviously Harold returning from the dead last episode, introducing himself to Joy, and now we get a little bit more on the development of the relationship between Joy and Harold in this episode. So Joy hugely questions the motives of Harold in this episode, but it's really interesting. There's lots of interesting things going on with Harold. He does unfortunately kill one of our favourite characters that we mentioned earlier on in the series. Lawrence Wilkins takes a bullet to the head in a sort of kind of suicide. I like that Harold just leaves it up to his henchman to, you just make sure that this bullet looks like it came from this gun and has his fingerprints on it. It can't look like I shot him from the other side of the desk at all. It obviously does quite a good job, though.
Oh, definitely. Like, this is so premeditated. It's really vicious. David Wenham here, just how he talks to Lawrence. Like, it starts off about, we've both got children, we're both parents, we both want to protect them. I thought it was kind of going to be a step down kind of thing, although always in the back of my mind, certainly since he rose from the zombie pool, he is getting a bit more up and downy with his emotions, his feelings, his temper. So I definitely thought that his pitch was simply going to be, you stand down, otherwise we will release these, and you'll get blackmailed. Not, so to deflect from Joy, and instead he pulls out the gun and shoots him. Effectively saying you have a choice: either you kill yourself, or effectively I'll do it for you, and outwhips the pistol, and bang, straight between the eyes and the forehead. So, like, this was really, really creepy from Harold, really brutal, and I kind of really like how Joy recognizes, that there is something creepy about her father. He does have a bit of a temper tantrum with her as well, with the very expensive bottle of whiskey, which, for Whiskey Watch, all I can say is it's an expensive bottle of whiskey. I didn't catch what it was, but one of the finest in the world, smashed all over in a quick bout of temper.
At least it had some left in the glass, though.
Yeah, but like, I love the fact that she's recognizing how creepy he is, and she's getting slightly freaked out by it. This relationship development was really good.
Okay, John, I want to counterpoint you here, and not to start an argument or something, but I didn't buy this velocity that the relationship went back to, in terms of how your dead father has just appeared to you, he's hugged you, and then later on we get a scene and he's just talking to her. You would expect, I think we discussed it as well, like I was expecting a more dramatic kind of fallout piece, like, how could you do this, tell me everything, why, blah blah blah, like, I don't believe you, oh my god, you're alive, you sleep in a hyperbaric chamber, like, what is that kale stuff you're drinking, like that type of level. But we didn't really get that.
Yeah, they did skip over the conversation itself, didn't they? It more went into the concept of, and Ward's known about this the whole time, my god, you've driven him insane, haven't you, from all the things that he's had to go through for the last 12 years. It was much more of the concern of Joy for her brother that we saw than her being freaked out for herself, I suppose. But she does get freaked out later on, as John mentioned, with the discussion over the bottle of broken whiskey, I suppose.
I mean, I think there's definitely that, she's in shock, and she's testing, she's feeling, she's not doing it in kind of I get your point that she's certainly not being loud or dramatic about it in that sense, or but she's certainly questioning him. She's questioning why he's here. She is uncomfortable when he hugs her, and she's creeped out by various things, and I buy the whole shock thing. I mean, look, as well, we're in a world where there's an undying dragon that has been killed.
Haven't seen him yet, though.
I know, and a mystical city, and obviously an Iron Fist. So, the events of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are referenced here. So some of these crazier things maybe are a bit more known by the general population. Aliens coming from a portal in the sky, all this kind of stuff. So I think her playing she's in shock. And she's processing it, and she's slightly uncomfortable with it. That conflict of, here's my father. I think the conflict of the emotions, I kind of prefer that, I think, for me, how that's being played, rather than it being an all-out kind of argument and brawl. Now, that may be still to come, probably.
Yeah, John, I can understand that, but we didn't even get... I would have even slightly preferred... Now, again, I'm not disheartening on the whole other parts that we've discussed, but we didn't even get oh my god, you're back from the dead and you haven't aged in the last 12 years. She's you would even expect you look the same when I saw you in the coffin. How are you here? Maybe that will come in a slightly later episode, but we just for me it just felt we skipped a massive piece, and when, as Derek has said, it went straight into the ward and then beyond.
We definitely skipped a part of this, but one of the good things about this conversation is that it does reference one of the things I was asking you guys about in the last episode, which is, did Joy see Harold die? Was she there by his side? And she says that she did see him waste away. They were turning his body over in the bed, taking care of him right the way through his illness. So he did debilitate all the way through for months with this cancer that ravaged his body, and he did die, not looking the same way he does now. He looks strong, he looks virile, he looks like a man of his age now. He doesn't look like the weak, frail, bedridden, sore-covered cancer victim that he was when he died and the last time Joy saw him. So while we did skip part of the conversation, Chris, and I do understand those, I suppose, from a writing point of view, those points were covered with Danny when he saw him for the first time, that he didn't look the same than he did in the past. So she may have said exactly the same thing to them, but they probably left it out because it's been covered in the show before. I think the character of Joy is not a soap opera character. She's not going to have a big screaming fit about this whole thing for the next 3 episodes and cry over the fact that her father's come back from the dead. She's going to take it on board, deal with it, and then walk into the board and go, right, here's my opportunity to get back in the position of power that I've had for the last 15 years. So I'm kind of glad they did the shortened version of this where we don't see the full conversation. I'm sure there were some tears that we didn't see, but she takes it in her stride and moves on in a way, but still comes back to it when she's in, when she has that moment that we were talking about earlier on. Absolutely.
And she doesn't know that he's died twice. So 12 years have lapsed. He's slept in a hyperbaric chamber. The kale juice... I mean, you're going to have to look at Joan Collins to see that you can slowly age over time, despite the age. I mean, and actually, you look at his picture on the wall in Rand Enterprises compared to him now, it seems to be more a choice of her dye that seems to be the main change. Mm-hmm. So... It's 12 years. He's recovered. He's been looking after himself, exercising, and so on. Yeah, but I think the underlying unease that she has, and maybe questions that she's maybe not asking in case it offends him. Mm-hmm. Maybe she's just glad to have her father back. So it is. I think it's a conflict for her, and I think she plays it well with unease rather than... anything else, but it might be that will be directed at Ward, given that he knew about it for 12 years and never said anything to her. Yeah. Maybe it will escape it in a different way from her.
Yeah. I think she's already blamed Harold for putting that pressure on Ward because she's seen how much he's cracked in the last couple of months. She's had to deal with them. She's seen how bad things have gotten for Ward. So I don't know whether there'll be any repercussions on Ward. She'll obviously mention to him, why didn't you depend on me and why didn't you talk to me about it? But she's already kind of said that to Harold as well. And he said he couldn't. He said Ward wasn't able to. So don't think when we do see Ward again, we didn't see him in this entire episode and he's been so central. You definitely miss Ward in an episode. So I'm sure when we see him again, there'll be a discussion. But I think it'll be more throwing the arms around him and going, now I realise what you've been going through, kind of discussion. But that's the top 5 points about the episode. Any notes that would need to be covered off before we close out the episode, Chris?
But just before I get into that, guys, this is why I love doing this podcast, because neither of those options, in my head, it was just like, this is annoying, why are they doing this? And as we've just discussed this part, I'm like, actually, yeah, okay, I can see it from your view, and I kind of enjoy that more now, that scene. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool.
Speaking of Harold, can I just say one thing? Apparently dying in a bog and coming back to life can regenerate your finger.
Interesting, yeah.
It could have been also the special sauce in the hot dog maker's cart that he put his hand into the boiling water, and all of a sudden you get part of your finger back.
It's a hot dog. It's not really his finger.
It's like, how did that get there? Oh yeah, this works.
It's made from mechanically recovered pork.
This was just a little kind of, I suppose we'll call it a goof, an oops. They haven't touched on that. I would like them to. If this happens, is like if they zoom in on his hands again to the level that they did in this episode, they may want to see him go, didn't I lose it? Oh, and then that could explain future, like decapitations or kind of losing of body parts and still kind of growing the actor. Like for example, if he loses an arm in some grand battle at the end, does he suddenly in the next series get it back? And that's how they can still do it without green screening the actor's arm.
I think it's going to be more specific than that. I think we're going to see it with Elektra, where she will get an injury, she may lose an arm, something like that, and it will grow back, and there will be a reason for it now. But yeah, I think it's entirely possible that we'll see it mentioned when, for example, Ward meets back up with Harold and notices that the finger's not gone. I think we will hopefully get a mention of it there. But yeah, good catch. I wasn't looking out for it at the time, but yeah, definitely the second time I saw the episode, I noticed it pretty quickly. Good stuff.
And one more note. I kind of alluded to this fact at the end of the last episode, with the episode title being Black Tiger Steals Heart, and how that could be about potentially Colleen and the breaking or stealing, quote unquote, of Danny's heart. We got this. This was fully realized in this episode.
Yeah.
So again, couldn't find a kung fu move that was attached to this. You may have noticed I kind of find it hard. So again, if any of our listeners are kung fu fanatics and you figured out and can video some of these moves, we will put it in our 100th episode, or at least on the Facebook group. But yeah, so I think this is the black-haired Colleen, i.e. the tiger, the daughter of the dragon, stealing Danny's heart.
Right, yeah, breaking it, yeah, absolutely. One of the things I did notice, I've been reading the new series of Iron Fist comic books. As I've said, I'm the one that doesn't know much about Iron Fist at all, but one of the things I noticed when reading the new comic books, which are really, really enjoyable, by the way, is that every time there's a move done when Danny's fighting another master, these types of titles appear in the corner explaining what moves he's doing when he's fighting the other master. They just kind of appear on the page as descriptors of what's going on in the scene, which I think is quite cool. So that's entirely possible. That's the reason why they're being used. I know we said in the past that they are kung fu moves. We know that, but we can't find the kung fu moves themselves because there's thousands and thousands of different kung fu moves. It's just interesting that in the comic books they're actually calling them out every time the characters are battling.
Cool. No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting choice of making sure that the reader knows, what the moves are and so on. And yeah, again, it's reminiscent of the titles of Iron Fist. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think we've covered all the notes and points about the episode there, so I guess that leaves us with our defense.
Chris, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do. This was a return to form of the Netflix universe that I liked. This was the culmination of some theories, some storytelling that I enjoyed, bar, obviously, as I said in that last point, the Joy story part. But again, now actually I'm seeing a new light. It was just a very strong episode. The direction, the fight scene in the hallway was really one of the better fights, adding into the courtyard scene, seeing this double team that I wanted to okay, I had imagined it being Danny and Colleen. We probably won't get that now, but it was a great the visual I had in my head. It was that back-to-back kung fu fight. Everybody was kung fu fighting. How have we not done that so far? But anyway, let's continue on. Additionally, the Golden Age Iron Fist introduction, the legacy there, and then the expansion of this Davos mystery, and then the ending for me was just that final frame of Danny slumped against the pole, Davos standing with his back to him. A yellowing sunset with the Rand "We're Here for You" billboard. Like, that was cinematography. Mwah. Like, that for me was just fantastic. Now, is this the best episode of a Marvel Netflix show? No. But for a series where I've been petering on defend, not defend, defend, not defend, in terms of some episodes, this for me was a strong delivery. That's all I can put it down to. It's just the characters, the acting is all now starting to pay off. Yes, episode 10 paying off. That is slightly longer than we usually want, but it's still paying off, and I'm quite happy about that. So yes, I defend this episode.
Excellent.
So, Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
Yeah, I highly defend this episode. This is really, really good. This is the kind of sequences I've wanted to see in the entire series. Really, really good. And the only drawback for me is that I wish some of these moments had happened earlier on in the season. I think you mentioned it, John, actually, taking the point out from under me a little bit. But yeah, I kind of wish we'd had some of these moments with Colleen earlier on in the season, or just some of the discussions with Colleen and Bakuto, or Bakuto and Madame Gao earlier on in the season, to have all of these reveals in episode 10 about what's going on, more detail behind the hand, more of the detail that maybe Kunlun isn't as upfront and honest with Danny as he thought they were, having him question his connection with Kunlun. A lot of this stuff could have been earlier on in the season, but I really enjoyed it overall. I think the episode itself was a really good episode for this season, definitely. And John, do you defend Season 1, Episode 10 of Iron Fist, Black Tiger Steel's Heart?
Oh, I certainly do. This is, I think, up there with one of my other favourites. I'm giving this 4.5 EpiPens out of 5. Yeah, for me, this looked back with the black and white footage to previous Iron Fists, you know, giving a little doff of the cap to the comics as well, and to the costume. It gave intrigue with, you know, what's going to happen next between Colleen and Danny and Davos, but even a bit of intrigue there with Daryl and quite what Bakuto stabbed into the side of Danny as he fled this compound. And you have a big betrayal there of Colleen and Danny's reaction to it, which again was, you know, really good. Gao again on form from a screen. Again, always looking for the advantage. I love this character, and I really like Bakuto. I think, you know, revealing who he was, his motives, his intentions, and just that arc of this whole episode between him and Danny, from sort of a welcoming friend and mentor of Colleen's through to being the leader of the Hand, or a Hand faction, I should say, trying to justify his organization's role and what it does in conflict with Danny's teachings of the Hand from Kunlun. Really, really good. Again, Harold on top form here with his little run-in with Lawrence. You know, Harold 1, Lawrence 0. For me, really, really good, strong episode of Iron Fist. With that, I think it's on to our feedback. Of course, remember, you can leave feedback by email at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. You can leave a voicemail over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. Of course, there's always our Facebook page and group to join. Just search Defenders TV Podcast. Come in and join all the comments, the chats, the discussions on Iron Fist and all things Marvel related. And of course, we are there on Twitter, tweeting away to our heart's content at Defenders Cast. Please share and follow us on Twitter. But I think we have a voicemail from one of our listeners, Claire Payne.
Hello Defenders, this is some feedback for episode 9. I would like to rename the episode Who Knew Ice Cream Could Be Deadly. Harold's return was excellent. I loved the way he just walked around the streets of New York looking gleefully at hot dog stands, water fountains, and then eventually coming back to the company himself. His reunited with Joy was also really good. You could just tell that he hadn't seen her for 12 years, and Joy is definitely a character that has grown on me. I think from about episode 5 I kind of thought, no, I do like Joy. It's also a great episode between Claire and Madame Gao, and also the poisoning of Colleen and how Baruko helped Danny use his Iron Fist in a different way to then Danny realise that he could actually use the power of the Iron Fist. And also the little story between the head of the Hatchet Men and Ward about the shepherd and like the history of this person who kept coming back to life. Overall, an excellent episode. Definitely one of my favourites in the series so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire, so much for that voicemail and feedback. Absolutely, I thought it was a really powerful scene with Harold and Joy as he kind of invites her up by opening up the elevators into the apartment, and certainly from him, that emotion, you could see it there, you know, and it links back to the time where he is rewarded by Madame Gao with a glimpse of Joy from across the street. He obviously has a favourite, and it is Joy Meacham. And I think that really came across in that scene where they hug, definitely.
Yeah, no, and I kind of had to say I really enjoyed this feedback, especially the ice cream killer part. The more and more I'm seeing this, then I'm like, yes, it like I've seen some very funny GIFs and imagery across the interwebs, and now it would make so much more sense that I understand it, because someone went spoilers and I ended up accidentally seeing it, and I was like, spoilers for what? And I was like, the Hatchet Men scene again. Yeah, I did enjoy that as well, and I'm not right there with you right now on Joy, but I think I'm hot and I'm cold with Joy.
Right.
Is the best way of saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that feedback, Claire. Great to hear from you again. If anybody else wants to leave a voicemail for us, as John said, just go onto the website, go to defenderstvpodcast.com, click on the send voicemail button and leave us your voicemail. You can also record by any other method of recording that you want to, attach it to an email and send it in to us over at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. We're getting into our last 3 episodes, so if you have any thoughts on the entire series of Iron Fist that you'd like us to talk about on our final episode, as we come up to it, email those into feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. But to ensure we're not spoiled, just make sure that you mark it, whether it's full season feedback, just mark it on there. Come join us on the Facebook group, as John mentioned, on facebook.com/groups/DefendersTVPodcast. They always get the best discussions out of us after the podcast, so you'll get to hear other thoughts that we don't talk about on the podcast, definitely.
Absolutely. And of course, remember always that you can subscribe to us at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or on any other good or evil podcast. Just search Defenders TV Podcast, subscribe, and if you so wish, leave a review. And of course, we'll be back on Tuesday the 18th of April with our review of Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 11, Lead Horse Back to Stable.
Our 100th episode, yes.
Absolutely, 100 and counting.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good. We are a wee young sprite of 100-year-old.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I'm pretty sure they can do all the jigs.
Oh, my hip.
That's it. We're all coming on walking canes on this episode.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Great to have you with us again for Defenders TV Podcast. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Absolutely. As always, thank you so much for listening, and we will speak with you next time. See you later.
See you later, guys. Hasta luego.
Bye.